Hi, Instagram. What's up, guys? Hello, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. I'm here bright and early today. I've already been I meditated. I woke up early again today. Okay, one of the benefits of living somewhere with regular sun and vitamin D is my circadian rhythm is so on point right now, and I'm loving it. I'm, excuse me, going to bed and waking up basically on my own, like at the appropriate time for me, but it's on my body's own schedule, which is great. So this morning I woke up early and got all of my meditations and my self time done, which feels great because now I can really come into this and be present. So it is like 30 degrees here in Texas. I gotta prop you up, Instagram. You're not where I want you to be. And for all my glow getters catching the podcast, good to have you guys here too. I'll have this uploaded same day so you guys can listen out. All right, let's get into it. I'm super excited to be live with you guys today because I know it's been a while since I've even been live to begin with. So today and kind of all week, my theme has been the shame spiral, right? I've been thinking a lot about what was I experiencing that had me really stuck in my journey, because chances are you probably follow me because you see part of yourself in me. And so you also see that you are capable of being just as powerful as I am, as being just as strong as I am. You are capable of being just as sexy and cozy and comfortable in your skin as I am. But it's like, what did I wish I knew before I did all of this myself? It's great. It's absolutely great to do the troubleshooting process yourself and hire some coaches along the way and get some guidance. But if you could really have, if past Desiree could have all the information she needed, what would it be? And one of those things would be how I handled the shame cycle, how I handled going off the wagon when I was in a program, when I was just trying to keep myself consistent, even when I wasn't working with a coach and I was just trying to do this on my own as a trainer, right? Because I was a personal trainer in the gyms before I was a coach online. I've been doing this. I've been working in the industry for 4 years now. So this is not new to me. And I already kind of knew what to do, but I was still stuck. I was still at this rock hard plateau, even after my personal training certification, my nutrition certification classes started. I had the knowledge. I knew what to do with the macros and everything. But what I needed was, one, to get my body on the same track as my mind, which they were in two different places. But then also to get myself to stop stressing myself out over nothing, really. There's no reason. None of us, as long as you're not a bikini bodybuilder and you are not on a set time frame, there is no reason for us to stress ourselves out and shame ourselves over not losing a pound or not losing this X amount of weight by this X date. So I really wanted to get into obviously there's some science that goes into this, but the mental, excuse me, the mental and emotional pieces of this that really keep us stuck in the rut and from breaking that plateau. So I want to start with what not to do, because I think that's where we all go first. And a lot of this is going to sound really familiar and you're going to be like, whoa, okay. So then what do I do in place of that? And we'll talk about what to replace those behaviors with. We'll talk about how to confront them in real time. And how it evolved for me so that you can start to see, okay, if I'm able to confront these things in real time, and then I'm able to have these conversations with myself regularly, what do the next steps look like? Because I think also, I know for me, one of the things I ran into was that I didn't know like, sure, it was great to think that I could break that self-talk shame spiral, but I didn't know where I was going to go next. I didn't have a vision. And so it was kind of pointless, right? There was like, I was shaming myself and spiraling because I had no vision and no direction. So we'll talk about all of those things today. And I'm super excited to get into it. So number one, like I just said, is really that self-talk. What not to do, right? Well, what we're not going to do is beat ourselves up about it. What we're not going to do is call ourselves fat or ugly or disgusting or insert adjective here that you like to use for yourself when you're beating yourself up. Now, oftentimes this happens after we go again off the plan, right? So let me know if this sounds familiar. Drop some action in the comments if you're like, whoa, it's a little close to home. But how often do you stay on track really well Monday through Friday? You're like on it. You hit all your workouts, you hit all your macros to the T, maybe plus or minus 5 here and there, but really you are on it. Then Friday night rolls around and one of your girlfriends says, oh, we're going to go out here. You want to join us? And so you go for drinks. Cool. So you had a drink or two on Friday night. Then Saturday rolls around. Your kids are maybe in some sports. And so you have all these games, all these activities, events, or errands to run, right? And so we maybe don't feed ourselves as well during the day because it's not on our same schedule that it is Monday through Friday. And so then that night you maybe have a really big meal at home. Maybe it's a home cooked meal. Maybe it's a restaurant meal. Who knows? But you just have a larger meal than normal. And then you're like, oh man, I had drinks last night. Now I'm having this tonight. That is where it starts. And that is where we get to nip it in the butt. And we're going to talk about that later. But I want you guys to keep in mind that that is the moment that it starts. As soon as you have that thought, it's gonna downward spiral from there because you've been actively running this cycle, this pattern, this behavior for so long that you're just going to naturally lead yourself into that spiral. So we have to stop it at the root thought. And when that first thought of like, oh man, and you feel a little bit of disappointment in yourself, that's where we get to flip the narrative of the self-talk. Instead of like, oh, I messed up, had drinks last night, having this tonight. Stop. It's cool. Okay, so you had drinks on Friday night. So what can you do in the next 7 days that will balance that behavior? Not punish yourself, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. Not punish yourself for making that choice. Not bully yourself about, oh, you always go with your friends instead of focusing on your goals, which is a thing too. And we're going to talk about that later. But like, is the behavior really so extreme? Did you really do so much damage in 1 or 2 drinks that you can't balance it and in a way make up for it? I don't like those words, but for my podcasters, I just did air quotes. Quote unquote, make up for it, right? Without like killing yourself or any kind of negative self-talk, which is possible. And we're going to talk about that too. So number 1, don't bully yourself. Don't shame yourself. Just don't even start the spiral. Okay. Number 2, don't compensate. So I know you just said, well, Des, you just said that we're going to make up for it. No. Again, what was my first word? Balance, right? We're all about balance here. And that is the key. How can you balance your behaviors? How can you balance your activities so that you aren't giving up real life, everyday luxuries? Now listen, depending on what your goals are, there will be some give and take. You will get to learn how to be strict with yourself, depending on what your goals are and what you need to do. You guys know I've been in a really deep cut before, and that is no joke. And it takes a certain amount of discipline. It does take a certain amount of discipline. That's just the reality. Like, this is the science behind it, right? Calories in versus calories out. and where those calories are coming from. And so because I was in a place where my metabolism was not quite where it needed to be for me to eat as much food as I wanted to and still to see the results I wanted to, I got to choose. Are you going to eat this much and really just like take your time? How over this are you? And for me, I had spent years, almost at that point, almost 10 years, almost one whole decade, shaming myself and keeping myself stuck. And so I was done. I was fed up. And so to me, it was worth making the behavioral changes I needed to for the time being to see the results that I wanted to. Everybody's going to be different in this phase. Not everybody is going to go into such a deep cut. However, being realistic with ourselves about what our goals are and what we're willing to quote unquote sacrifice, right? You don't have to give up drinks once a week with your girlfriends. You don't have to give up brunch on Sunday mornings with your family. It's just how do we balance that throughout the week? And so one of the things we are not going to do is compensate with exercise. I'm looking at you, Miss. Oh, I had a heavy brunch yesterday, so I'm going to hit it super hard at the gym today and then be sore all week because I murdered myself and then not make it back to the gym. And then next weekend when I have drinks again, I will start my downward spiral of shame again. Sound familiar? Yeah. We all know it. I know it. I've been there. This isn't even to like shame ourselves about the shame spiral, right? Because I know that some of you are sitting here right now and you're like, oh my God, she's calling me out. And oh my gosh, what have you been doing to yourself? No. Don't start the self-talk, right? Watch where you're going, back it up, and we'll talk about how to reframe it here in just a second. But compensating is also something not to do. Don't do it with your exercise because you're just going to really do the opposite of what you want, which is you're going to counteract one, the actual benefits of the exercise, and two, of even trying to get back on track, right? Back on the wagon, because if you can't work out for the rest of the week because you beat yourself up in the gym on Monday, then what's the point? Like, why even have a program, right? Why even have like a gym routine if you beat yourself up so hard on Monday that you can't make it the rest of the week? And you're just constantly running that cycle, right? So that's number one. And number two is the diet, because we tend to go one or the other and sometimes both. So I know for me, it was usually both, actually. I would try to compensate both with exercise by like working really hard on Monday and Tuesday, but then I'd be dead for the rest of the week. And I would also cut calories. I don't know why I was going to put air quotes around that. I would also cut calories for like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And so I'd get my protein in, but I really wasn't eating enough food. I was eating like 12 or 1,300 calories on those days, which is enough food for a toddler. Okay. So I wasn't even giving my body enough food to like do the normal surviving and living, let alone making change. We've talked about this quite a bit lately, which is that we have to create a really flourishing, thriving environment, to see these changes that we're seeking. Building muscle is not for the lighthearted, okay? Like building muscle takes time, it takes patience, especially if you're not using steroids. It's a process. It is a process. And we like to think that, let me dedicate myself for 12 months. And in 1 year, if I could do everything I needed to for 365 days straight, then I will have the body that I want, I will have the results that I want, and I'll be able to do X, Y, and Z, which is whatever is next, right? But a lot of times we get so hung up in that, like, I just have to do everything perfect right now. And again, not having the vision of the long term. And when I realized that I didn't want to keep stressing myself and my friends. Okay. When my friends started, when they were like, Des, like, you work really hard during the week, you can have yourself one drink. When I would be out with my friends and they started saying, are you not going to eat? Are you not going to have a drink with us? Like, when I realized that these behaviors were becoming very visible to others, and I was like, oh man. And again, it came back to some discipline. And there was a point in my journey where I was like, no, I'm not going to have a drink. No, I'm not going to eat. I already ate before I left the house, so I'm not hungry. And also I knew that these foods wouldn't fit in my macros. So I just made the best decision for myself already today. Thank you though. But it took me being able to get there. And so how did I get there, right? This is, how do we shift in the moment? So we know what not to do. We know not to bully ourselves. We know we got to stop like the shame spiral, right? That for sure is not going to help us get rid of the shame, because we're just going to keep spiraling. And then we also know that we don't want to compensate with diet and exercise. So what do we want to do? Okay. Here, from a science perspective, from like a literal action step perspective, here is what you do if Friday through Sunday you just went way off and into emotional fulfillment land, which also matters. Okay. We know that we are mind and body here. And so we embody the woman we want to be. And the woman I want to be does not restrict herself 24/7, 365. No. Because I am not a restrictive being. And so how am I going to say, oh, I'm full of limitless potential, and then say, oh, but you only get to do these things? But that's contradictive. That's another show for another day. Back to the topic. What do we do action step wise, right? Okay, so you've gone over your macros. You know you didn't probably hit your protein needs for the weekend, and you wake up on Monday, you're feeling kind of sluggish, you're feeling kind of bloated, right? All of these things are also these physical traits, these physical factors that motivate us even more to take action on compensating with diet and exercise or having negative self-talk, right? So we want to take a positive action. We want to take a progressive action that's actually going to keep us moving forward, even if we took a little break for the weekend, for a week. If you're going on vacation, like this applies to any break, quote unquote, that you take from your diet and exercise regimen. For me, it's just my lifestyle. That's what I call it. So like, whatever you call it, cool. Doesn't matter. This just accounts for any break, okay? Number one, whenever you get back to your routine or back home or whatever, Monday rolls around, water. Water is your best friend, okay? Drink like one extra bottle of water that day. And by bottle, I just mean 16 ounces, like the small bottle. This is a 40-ounce bottle. So for me personally, if I went and had the time of my life on a weekend or went on vacay for a week and had, again, the time of my life, right? The first thing I'm doing when I come back is drinking one extra of these. This is for me, okay? This is because I drink a lot of water anyways. So if you're only drinking 90 to 100 ounces of water right now, or not even that, then give yourself an extra 16 ounces for that first whole week. That first whole week back on. Now, what this is going to do is also encourage you, because this is positive reinforcement instead of negative reinforcement, right? So you've spent all week curating this habit of drinking extra water. Now, when the weekend rolls around again, you're going to be able to make more educated choices for yourself, because you're going to remember how bad you felt when you woke up on Monday physically, which is normal when we eat out and things. And then you're going to remember, like, man, you've spent all week putting all this extra water and all these extra nutrients into your body to help it run a little better. Do you really want to go and put alcohol in it to negate it? Again, no judgment. It's no judgment, but it's just another way to give ourselves some accountability, right? We're like, how can I have accountability without a coach? How can I do this without a coach? Well, these are the ways that you do it. The thing is that it's typically hard for people to put these kind of boundaries down for themselves. And so that's when you get to have a coach guide you through it. But I also know what it's like when you make one small change and you feel that one small difference, and then you're like, man, do I really want to go and like upset the homeostasis that I've created now? It's a trade-off, and that's for you to choose. Again, it's no judgment. It just is what is best for me. What's going to be the most fulfilling? What's going to help me not go down that road of negative self-talk? What's going to help me completely avoid and bypass even the idea of compensating with diet and exercise next week, right? It's an in the moment thing. It really is. And so when you are then out at brunch or dinner or whatever the following weekend, ask yourself these questions. Is this drink going to be fulfilling enough that I will not go down the road of bullying myself tomorrow? Or am I going to wake up and feel guilty and feel ashamed and feel like, ugh, I've done it again, and then start the spiral all over again for another 7 days? And if this drink is going to trigger a spiral, then maybe I get to not have it. And then maybe I get to go home and journal on why I feel like I can't have that drink or control myself in these situations, or why I feel like I need to control myself, right? These are all things like, this is the inner work. This is the inside stuff that comes up that is like, oh, this is what I get to look at, because that's what's keeping you from being able to break the unhealthy habit of the shame spiral, is not being able to look at these deeper things and understand why they're there and where they come from and make educated choices for ourselves. It's similar to like taking a test, right? But except the test is life. And it's like, if you don't know the answer, you go back and read the context, and then you make the most educated choice you can. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong. But hey, at least you tried something different and you used your brain. And when you used your brain to try something different, to do something different, you started rewiring pathways that cause you to make the unhealthy, shameful choices, shameful, quote unquote, choices that you feel like you make for yourself. Does that make sense? If you guys are keeping up with me, go ahead and drop like a heart or some fire action in the comments. So we really get to like lean into the moment and look into the moment. Even later, we get to reflect on that moment and really figure out where we can make shifts in our own personal behavior and choices that will benefit us mentally, emotionally, physically, etc. Yeah? So something else to do. I know that all came from water. It was so simple. But something else to consider doing when you come back, and this one in particular, from like a long break or from a super busy long weekend, anything more than like 2 days out of my regular routine, I will not weigh myself for a whole week. I don't get on the scale that regularly anyways, because right now I'm the same weight. I stay between 145 and 150. I'm losing fat, which is great because I'm going to cut. That's what I want, but I'm not losing weight. So that's cool too, because that means I'm keeping all my muscle that I worked so hard for over a year. So I'm about it, right? But especially that first week back, I'm not weighing myself. If I choose to weigh myself after a weekend of a lot of out of habit, out of routine things, it's mostly so I can watch for water weight. And that's just me being a coach and knowing that I can put the boundary down for myself of like, okay, we're not here to judge ourselves about the weight. We're not here to look at the weight. I just want to see how my water weight fluctuates when I'm drinking alcohol right now? Like how is my body responding? And this is more for like bioindicators and learning about my body than it is for me to judge myself for whatever weight I may have gained over the weekend, which is mostly water weight and sodium. So like literally that means you have to put it away before you go out on Saturday night. Because then when you wake up the next morning, you're going to forget that you put it away. And then maybe later that weekend, like Thursday or something, you'll run into it under your sink and you're like, oh yeah, I should weigh myself. And by then, all your water weight's gone. You'll be fine. The scale wouldn't have budged. If it has, maybe you've even lost a pound and you're like, oh, wow. And again, rewiring those neurological pathways, right? Because yes, some of this is behavioral, some of this is emotional, but some of this is, because it's also behavioral, it's also, there is a science piece to this, and it is possible to train yourself to get out of these unhealthy cycles. It just takes awareness and then being able to put the boundaries down. All right, if you guys are keeping up with that much, again, drop some action in the comments. I know this has been a really info-packed episode. Hey, Makia. Thanks for hopping in, even if it's only for a minute. All right, so we talked about what not to do, right? We're not going to have negative self-talk. We're not going to compensate with diet and exercise. We're not going to put ourselves in the shame spiral. We talked about what to do in the moment, right? So making sure that we are confronting the problem as soon as it presents itself. As soon as you start to think, oh no, why did you do that? That's when we get to confront the thought process. That's what we get to take home. We get to keep it in our pocket, literally put it in your back pocket. Don't forget that you thought that. And then as soon as you get home, you're going to go pull out your journal and you're going to start reflecting on why am I shaming myself for this? What is the trigger? How am I preventing myself from becoming the woman I want to be by having these thought processes? Go deeper with yourself, because that trigger is never just about the thing. It's never about the hot wings you're going to have. It's never about the deep fried pickles you're going to eat. It's never about the alcoholic drink you're going to have. It's always something deeper. There's always a self-esteem root issue that we get to look at when these things come up for us. It's just easier for us to blame the physical 3D drink or the physical 3D food than it is to dig a little deeper, right? But these questions will help lead you to the right place of where this trigger and where this blockage is actually coming from. And then once you have that part figured out, what do we do next, right? Well, one of the things I just said earlier was that you really want to make sure you have a vision. If you don't have a vision for where you're going, if you don't have a big end goal, and this is with anything we do, right? This is with business, this is with personal development, this is in our relationships and our families, whatever you're trying to improve. If you don't have a big dream and a big goal, one that feels a little unattainable actually, then you're not going to be able to find the energy to put down the boundaries or do the reflection that you need to do to confront these behaviors and get out of these cycles. Okay. So number one, and this one for sure, I think is probably the hardest for everyone. It was the hardest for me for sure. Oh my God, I just lost my track of thought, you guys. This happens to me sometimes. I'll be getting downloads and it's like, skirt, everything goes away. Okay, so having the big vision, that's where we were. Thank you. So we have the big vision. And then what we get to do is make decisions from that place of being that person. So like I've been kind of saying this and hinting at this whole episode is like, the woman you want to become, the woman you want to become. What kind of choices does she make? How does she talk to herself? Does she shame spiral every time she has an alcoholic beverage? Does she shame spiral if she goes out and has a fried banana with ice cream? Probably not. In fact, she probably enjoys it so much and has no worries about how it's going to affect her results, right? So how do I make daily small steps towards becoming that woman? How can I help myself stop the shame spiral now so that when I become her, I'm not actually being hindered from really being in my whole power, in the whole unlimited potential that I have? Because again, like I said earlier, you can't be a woman of magnificent power and unlimited potential and also tell yourself, no, you can't have that. No, you don't get that. No, you don't get to do that. No, you're not like that. Like, that's very restrictive, narrow-minded thinking when you want to be this expansive, wide open vessel for change. Well, that's opposite, right? It's similar to like manifestation. It is manifestation. Like specifically, we talk about money a lot when we talk about manifestation, right? So I'm sure you guys have heard all the different tips when it comes to money manifestation. And one of those things is that you get to say you are already where you want to be, right? So you start claiming, I am abundant. I am prosperous. I make money easily and effortlessly. Guess what? It's the same thing with our bodies, you guys. And the thing is, our bodies respond to, again, the stress, right? So when we're constantly putting stress in our mind and having these psychological battles with ourselves, then our body is going to say, dude, I'm not changing. I'm stressed out. I'm stressed out. You got me stressed. And then you're over here having these conversations with me too, and that's got me stressed. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here because at least here in this place, I'm surviving. But if you want your body to thrive, if you want your mental health to thrive, if you want your emotional health to thrive, if you want everything else past your body to also thrive, you have to create a thriving environment. You have to create a garden in which the plant can flourish. That means the soil you use, the thoughts you have are the soil that you use. The water that you watered that soil with. The beliefs you have are the water that you water your soil with. The actions you take are the daily trimmings that you make to that plant, the daily attention that you give that plant. Do you understand how we really just are nature? And all we have to do is use the rules of nature to get what we want from ourselves, from life, etc. It's kind of crazy, right? And I think we overcomplicate it because of social media advice. There's all these influencers. There's all this conflicting advice, right? One person says one thing and then somebody says the complete opposite. And you're like, okay, what's true? Usually it's somewhere in the middle, just so you know. But when we have that big vision for ourselves, it can seem a little overwhelming at first, actually, but it keeps us on the right track because then I can say and know that one thing I did, that one extra appetizer I had, that one extra drink I had is really just a drop in the ocean, right? In the grand scheme of things, in the long term, there's no reason for me to beat myself up about this if I'm going to end up in the same place next January anyways. As long as I know that I'm going to stay disciplined and committed to my plan, whatever my plan is, then why am I even spending the energy to beat myself up about this when that energy could be put into helping me flourish and helping me thrive and changing the environment in which I'm asking my body for change, right? So water, having a big vision, and then knowing the daily action steps that we get to take that lead to that big vision. So notice how I didn't say anything about cutting calories. Notice how I didn't say anything about avoiding going out the next weekend, which again, that comes down to your goals, right? What are your goals? And if you have very specific goals, and if you do have a time frame, or you are a little sensitive about how you're going to look specifically by a certain date, then yes, you get to be more disciplined. You get to be more committed to your plan. But it absolutely is possible for you to enjoy the shit. I forgot I was on Facebook and Instagram. I hope they don't kick me off. They've been very picky lately about language. But it is okay to enjoy the heck out of your life. And you can still make constant, consistent progress towards your results. Towards your goal. All right, guys. So if you missed part of the episode, go back. Like I said, this is going to be on my podcast too. So I'll share it once the episode is ready because I get to do something new today. I get to learn a new thing and figure out how to take my audio off of the video so I can put it in the podcast. That's going to be fun. So if you missed part of the episode, you can go ahead and catch the podcast too if you got to run. Thanks for joining me, everybody on Facebook. It was fun to have you guys here. Thanks for holding it down on Instagram, Akia. There were some people coming in and out, but I appreciate all you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and let me know what your biggest takeaway was from this live in the comments. Have a great weekend, Glow Getters. Love you guys. Bye.